Good morning, colleagues. We are just waiting for a few other people to join, and we should be able to start in the next few minutes. So please bear with us for a couple of more minutes, and we should be starting soon. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. We are just waiting for a few other people to join, and we should be able to start in the next few minutes. So please bear with us for a couple of more minutes, and we should be starting soon. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. We are just waiting for a few other people to join, and we should be able to start in the next few minutes. So please bear with us for a couple of more minutes, and we should be starting soon. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. We are just waiting.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this call. My name is Jennifer Lipenga from For Equality. So as we wait for our speaker to join, I'm just going to share a little bit about the project that we're implementing, which is part of this Webithon series. So with support from Urgent Action Fund Africa, For Equality is implementing this project that we're calling the Strengthening Feminist Coordination for Accountability on Malawi's Economic Justice and Generation Equality Forum Commitments. So as most of you might know, there's this global campaign called the Generation Equality Campaign, and there was a forum that happened last year, which was a convening on gender equality. There were two main meetings that happened. One was first in March in Mexico, and then it finished off around July in France.
Jenny?
Yes?
We seem to have some feedback situation going on. Let me try to see if we can fix that.
Okay.
I think you can try now, Jenny, to see if it's okay. Thank you. Jenny, please feel free to continue now. I think it's okay. Jenny, I don't know if you can hear me. I think we've fixed the problem from this end. Feel free to continue now. Okay, it seems like we've lost Jenny for a bit. I don't know if Shalom is ready. Shalom, are you able to come in now?
Hi, Wilson. Yes, I'm able to come in now.
Okay, thank you. I think Jenny is also back. Let me just check with her. And then if she's not ready, we'll come to you, Shalom.
Okay, sure.
Jenny, are you back? Oh, it seems she's not back. Okay, let me just maybe take over to talk about just the background to why we are doing this Webithons. Then I'm sure by the time I'm done, Jenny will be back and she'll be able to confirm with us if our other speaker is ready as well. If not, we'll be going to Shalom, who will be taking over to do the next bit of this. May we also ask for your permission to record this, so just for our record keeping as well. I hope all of us are okay. If you're not okay with it, you can maybe indicate in the chat, but it's purely just for our record keeping so that we keep this content as well. So once again, welcome everyone to this Webithon series. So it's a series of talks that we're going to be having over the next 3 days. And we have titled them Webithons. And I guess it's just a fancy way of saying a series, of webinars that we will be convening. And we will be convening around the theme of generation equality forum, and we'll be diving into some of the key things or some of the key concepts around this. And the reason why we felt this is so important is because we've been doing quite a lot of engagements and consultations, both at country level and regionally as well. At a country level, we were privileged to be part of the CSOs, a small group that has been working to, that helped shape or co-create the Malawi country commitments. Now, as some of you might know, Malawi is co-leading the Feminist movement and leadership action coalition, but so it made commitments under that, but it also made commitments under economic justice and rights. As some of you might know as well, CARE International globally is one of the co-leads of the Economic Justice and Rights Action Coalition, and they've been doing such strong work here in Malawi as well. So through that synergy, there was a process which led to Malawi also making commitments under that. And I'm sure I've seen we have colleagues who are joining in from other countries as well. You might be able to see the action coalitions that your countries have made commitments under. But in our consultations after the commitments were done and just talking to people, there was a sense of a general lack of knowledge and understanding of what GEF is about. How different is this from the SDGs? Others were telling us, is this just another fancy thing that you have come up with again? Are we making any progress? Is it actually going to change anything? So those are some of the conversations we have been having with people, and we thought, with the support that we got from Urgent Action Fund, which was really around doing a lot more work on the Economic Justice and Rights Action Coalition, we thought it would be a great opportunity for us to have this series of talks where we bring in different experts, people who understand the issues, some of the critical issues that are under GEF, to come in and talk to us and really explain some of the concepts, what GEF is about. So the first one we're having today is sort of setting the stage for what we're going to do over the next 2 days. Today we'll be talking about what GEF is and the commitments and zoning in a bit on Malawi. So we're privileged to have colleagues from the government of Malawi who were part of the creation of these commitments joining us. But at the same time, over the next 2 days, we'll have other speakers who are coming in to really now zone in on key aspects under economic justice and rights. I know we're going to have another Webithon on which will be the last one, I think, on transforming the care economy, because it has come up to be one of the critical issues that people want to understand more. How do we actually transform the care economy? I guess moving from rhetoric around talk to seeing how we actually, bring that together and actualize that in a practical sense. So that's one of the key things that we'll be talking about in the webinar. And then we'll also have another one tomorrow. We'll be sharing all the details around the next 2 webithons, but they're happening around the same time, 10 a.m. to around 11:30. So we've given about 1.5 hours for each webithon. So I know we have started late today, but allow me, I see our speaker is here. Fred, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I was just giving a brief overview of what we are doing. So allow me to get us to jump straight into the talk for today. Then I guess Shalom will come at the end as we wrap things up. And allow me to invite Mr. Fred Simwaka. He is joining us from Malawi. He is the Chief Gender and Development Officer, and is also in charge of the Women Economic Empowerment aspect in the ministry, the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare. So let me welcome Fred, Mr. Fred Simwaka, to take the floor and really walk us through more around the commitments that were made in Malawi, but also most importantly, to talk about the progress that has been made, because I think it's critical that as we're engaging with GEF, at the center of our conversations has to be the accountability and the tracking bit. Are we actually making progress? What are some of the things we're seeing? And at the end, we'll be inviting you colleagues, because we also want this to be a platform for cross-sharing, because we know we have different experiences in different countries. We'll be inviting you to be sharing with us some of the progress you are seeing that is being made in your countries in terms of, you know, the actual implementation of the country commitments that your governments have made towards GEF. So Fred, if you can hear me, please feel free to come in at this point, and welcome to this first Webithon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wilson. Apologies for joining in late.
Recording in progress.
Just give me about a minute. Let me transit from the phone to my laptop. Just a moment.
All right, that's fine, Fred. That's fine. Thank you so much. If you are able to type in your chat box, would love to know who you are and where you are joining us from, and maybe the organization that you are affiliated to. So please feel free to just type in your chat box and introduce yourself so that we get to know who is on the call. We're also streaming this live on our YouTube channel, but this will also be on our website for future reference for those who might want to refer back to these conversations. So please feel free to type in the chat box if you can. Let us know who you are and where you are joining us from. For those who are on Twitter, please feel free to tweet about this, share the link, invite more people. Our hashtag that we are using for this is hashtag GEF Webithon. I am just typing that on the group chat so that everyone can see the hashtag. So please feel free to use the hashtag as well so that we can get the word out there. And if you'd like to tag us, I'm also putting our Twitter handle on the chat box so that you can use that. Fred says he is ready to go. So let me once again invite Fred to take the stage and walk us through. Fred, over to you.
Thank you very much, Wilson. I might have missed the first part of my assignment. Do you want to come for me to come straight for the country level commitments, or we are talking of what we have done so far?
I think you can start with the country level commitments, just a brief overview, and then zone in more on the progress that has been made. Thank you.
All right. So for the purposes of this meeting, we are concentrating on the gender justice, yeah? Economic justice,
yes.
Yeah?
Yes, Fred.
All right. Thank you very much, colleagues. As Malawi, of course, we are looking at two AC focus areas. We are the co-leaders in the feminist movement and leadership, but also because our colleagues from CARE, they chose the area of economic justice and rights. So we've been moving together with CARE and other organizations like For Equality, whom are also working on the economic justice and rights. UN Women, they are also on this. So we are focusing on two, but we are also committing to participate in all the 6 commitment action areas. But for now, as a country, let's focus on where we are leading and where we are very much concentrating on issues of economic justice and rights. So as a country, we had made commitments in the area of economic justice and rights. In the action area number 1, where we are talking of increase women's economic empowerment by transforming the care economy. We know that in Malawi and most African countries, most of the women are involved in the care economy. So, because in most cases, when you look at women, they are lagging behind in terms of their participation in economic activities which are productive. But you'll find that they are in the forefront when they are doing work which is normally called care work or an unpaid care work. So the purpose is to really ensure that women and girls also participate in the productive work. So in this action area 1, which is increase women's economic empowerment by transforming the care economy, the government had committed the following in partnership with our colleagues from CARE. 1, we are committing to adopt policies and implement programs aimed at reducing and redistributing the unpaid care work. So this can be done through the following. A, we are talking of adopting a paternity leave policy. Yes, we have other CSOs, NGOs in Malawi who have paternity leave, and also some parastatals who have paternity leave. So we want to mainstream this, especially also in the mainstream governments. Yes, we can propose and we can have the paternity leave, but it should be seen to be working. So we want to ensure that this one is being enforced and people, government institutions are doing this. On the same, there is the part B, which says adopting a policy that will make care work visible and accessible. So as a government, yes, we have policies, but we have to see and ensure that these we will have to make care work visible and accessible, just not on paper. We have also action area number 2, which says expand decent work and employment in formal and informal economies. So in this action area number 2, as a government, we are saying that we have to close the gender gaps in public procurement through adoption of a 30% quota for women and women-owned businesses in the Procurement Act. Of course, already through the DPP, this is we call it DPP. It deals with procurement issues. It's a department which looks at procurement issues in the public sector. So our colleagues have gone ahead already at ODPP because, it's PPDA. PPDA. So it's a department which looks at disposal of public assets. So they have gone already promoting women's participation and giving them a leverage to ensure that they also participate in public procurement, because government is the biggest procurement actor and disposal of assets. So if we are talking of government contracts, that's where big monies are talked about. So the PPDA, they have gone ahead to ensure that women are given a fair opportunity to participate in procurement of public assets. So If you may recall, maybe for those colleagues who are not in Malawi, but for the team in Malawi, they will recall that we had a meeting in Imponela in Lilongwe, whereby we invited the PPDA, and we had a very senior officer who made a presentation on the participation of women in the procurement procedures. So we are going ahead, and this is a very welcome idea, especially coming from us, Minister of Gender, because we can see that more women will be participating in this. Action area number 3 is increase women's access to and control over productive resources. You remember, you may recall earlier on I had mentioned of women participating more on reproductive activities. And now this one is emphasizing that women's access to and control of productive resources is also increased. So on this one, the government is saying that we are committing to facilitate access to markets for over 25,000 women in cooperatives, informal groups, and as women-owned businesses or enterprises. So the focus is on women. We are targeting 25,000. In Malawi, as of now, we are reaching out to more women, especially organizing them into in productive businesses, which are normally called cooperatives. So we have institutions or organizations like COMSIP, RIKEA, Save the Children, so many, they are into organizing women into cooperatives. This is just to ensure that women have got a common voice so that they can negotiate for bigger contracts. And on the same action area number 3, government is committing to establish a dedicated Women's Economic Empowerment Fund to ensure that women at all levels, including in informal groups, have access to affordable loans. Yes, we have a small window through NEF, National Economic Empowerment Fund, which focuses women and youth. But we wanted to go further to have this maybe within the mainstream government structure, maybe through the Ministry of Gender or Ministry of Finance, whereby this fund can be managed by commercial banks, so that maybe the banks should be holding this portfolio and access them, assess the applicants and do a due diligence with the bank's own capacity to ensure that the fund is sustainable. So we are working on this with our colleagues from Ministry of Finance. But for this year, I think it was not possible because the resource envelope was not adequate. And then action area number 4, on commitment on economic justice, we are saying that we have to promote gender transformative economies and fiscal stimulus. So in this one, we are saying that we are going to commit. Of course, it might not be direct, but it might come out indirectly. So for the gender transformative economies and fiscal stimulus, we are looking at increasing investments in gender responsive infrastructure, public services that will contribute to reduction of maternal mortality rates by, among other things, constructing about 900 health centers with a maternity unit to service about 100,000 women. So here, the government is committing to mobilize enough resources towards social protection schemes that integrate women's land rights, digital financial services, and participation in formal and informal economic social empowerment platforms. As of now, already, the government is running a social cash transfer program, which is covering 28 districts. But of course, in the last phase, last year especially, we also had a specific program which was looking at the poor in the urban areas. So we were targeting 4 councils in Malawi, that is Mzuzu, Blantyre, Zomba, and Lilongwe. So this program will also continue in this year. And our colleagues from the European Union have already committed about 6 million on supporting the poor people in the urban areas through the window of the cash transfer. I think as of now, let me stop there. because at a certain point, I'm not sure whether I'm talking to people. It's just quite maybe people listening to me. Can I have maybe an interjection so that maybe I should know that I'm talking to people out there? Thank you very much, Wilson. Over to you as for now.
Thank you so much for that presentation and just walking us through the commitments that Malawi has made. I think it's really important as a movement, as a people who are working in this space to really understand what these commitments are. And I know they are different for different countries, but I also know that at the end of the day, we're all working in one way or the other in advancing these commitments in our different countries. So thank you so much for sharing that. At this point, I would like to find out if there's anyone on this webinar today who might have any question for Fred. I think he's shared quite a bit on the commitments for Malawi. Just to summarize, Malawi committed to two action coalitions, the first one being Feminist Movement and Leadership, and the second action coalition being around economic justice and rights. And so Malawi is co-leading on the Feminist Movement and Leadership Action Coalition alongside Canada and the Netherlands. And Malawi really renewed its commitment to promoting feminist movement building as well as women leadership at all levels. And so this was a really key priority area for Malawi. And I think Fred also highlighted why it was important that Malawi commit to economic justice and rights. I think when we speak about these issues, we're really referring to how does the economy and the political system affect or benefit the general population? How are the benefits and the costs distributed? How are institutions being held accountable for the economic outcomes that they generate? And at the end of the day, how is all of this working for the better good of everyone? So I see the first question from Tinatswe Mhaka. Does Malawi have a specific amount dedicated to the prevention of violence against women and girls specifically? So that's the first question from Tinatswe. Do we have any other questions so that Fred can tackle maybe two at a time? But I think as we're waiting for other questions to come, perhaps Fred, you can go ahead. You were wondering if there's people listening, if people were listening, and Tinatswe has a question around, does Malawi have a specific amount of money that's dedicated to prevention of violence against women and girls specifically? So Fred, over to you.
Thank you very much for the good question. Yes, as government, normally at the beginning of every year, we make budgets which are submitted to the Ministry of Finance. And in the next coming year, we have allocated some resources towards the program of, hello?
Yes, Fred, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, we have allocated some resources towards what we call the gender-based violence section in the Ministry of Gender. So in this case, there is an amount which has been allocated to generic GBV issues, which includes issues of domestic violence. Yes, as a government, we have our own resources because we submit according to the ceilings which have been provided by Ministry of Finance. So far, we have about, just there, about 40 million, which has been allocated towards gender-based violence. But then we also we enter agreements with our development partners. Already we have gone into an agreement with UNFPA, who are very key on issues of gender-based violence. We are also into an agreement with UN Women, and they have pumped in a lot of money. But if you were asking from the government, That is our contribution, but there is more than what has been committed by government, because in these commitments, it's not government as government, because we are signing these commitments with commitments from our development partners. So when we were developing those commitments, it's not government on its own, but we are developed in development partners, UNFPA, UN Women, CARE. So when we were making these commitments to reduce gender-based violence and what we are working together with our development partners. I hope this answers the question. If maybe there is need for more clarification, I'm around for me to give you back whatever you may require. Thank you also.
All right, thank you for that response, Fred. I see we have a couple of questions. Tafazwa, your hand is up, and so I think Wilson is going to unmute you so that you can go ahead and ask your question. And then thereafter, we have a question in the chat, Fred, from Jenny from Kandawir, who's asking what percentage is allocated to women from PPDA. So we can start with Tafazwa, and then we'll move on to Jennifer, who's clarifying to say, I mean, public institutions, what percentage of contracts are women to benefit? All right, so Tafazwa, you can go ahead and ask, and then after that, Fred, you may answer Jennifer's question. Thank you.
Thank you, Rugare. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simaka, for your presentation. And I would like to congratulate Malawi for taking this initiative. And I wanted to ask whether at SADC level, at the SADC Gender Ministries platform, you have also been able to inspire other countries in the Southern Africa region to be able to take the initiative to align or mainstream the generation equality program in their national work. So that's one question. And then the second one, to what extent is the government of Malawi addressing or supporting women in the informal sector, especially the cross-border traders that were affected by COVID-19? So in other words, to what extent are they going to benefit from the economic programs that you have as a government? Thank you. Over to you.
Great, thank you, Tafazwa. So after this, I'll read out, Jennifer, your question again, and then Tawanga, please ask so that Fred can answer the 3 questions all at once. So Tawanga, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all the information that we learned today from Mr. Smaga. I just wanted to quickly find out if these 2 new commitments means Malawi is going to have a new system or new structures in place to accommodate this. Why I'm asking that is trying to disassociate this from the business as usual, because as a country, we already make commitments on GBV and all the rest. Do we have a new commitment, especially in terms of finances, to accommodate the 2 new commitments, or this is embedded within what the government is already doing? So my fear is, if it's already embedded in what we're already doing, there's going to be a challenge to kind of monitor the gains that we're making. I think this also alludes to one of the comments that was made on whether we are mainstreaming this in our national frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you, Tawanga. So Fred, there we go, 4 questions for you. There were 2 from Tafazwa Muropa, the last one ending with the extent to which government is supporting women in cross-border trade. And then we have a question from Jennifer, who wants to know what percentage of the contracts from the money that you've mentioned, what percentage of contracts from public institutions are going to benefit women? And then you can finish up with Tawanga's question around, will Malawi have new structures to accommodate these commitments? Because we've made commitments before. And so what's really going to be different regarding these commitments? So over to you, Fred.
Thank you very much for those questions. I will begin by responding to the first question, which was talking of what percentage are we allocating. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Fred.
Yes, the percentage which have been allocated to women on contracts is 30%. So we would like to ensure that the minimum should be 30%, but sometimes
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I was saying that the percentage is 30%, but sometimes we have the challenges whereby the bids might be lower from the women, but at least 30% is the one which has been allocated. Are we on the is a chair for SADC? We want to not only do business as usual, but from the commitments that we have made, when we are meeting, we should be making presentations on what we have committed versus what we have done. So, talk of what we had committed and what we have done. So that one will be coming out clearly when you are reviewing the commitments made and done on the ground. And about the support for women cross-border traders. We are really together with them. One, I will mention about the meetings that we have been holding. Of course, you notice that we were not then focusing, but we were working with the Cross-Border Association of Malawi. So it was something that we wanted to hear from the cross-borders to say, what problems are you facing? So the support in terms of that we wanted to see what hiccups the cross-borders of Malawi facing when outside the country. So in this, we gave space to the people, especially because most of them, they were women. We gave space to them to talk, and we discussed with relevant institutions which deal with issues of the women going out. So we had in the discussions the presence of Ministry of Gender ourselves, Ministry of Industry and Trade, the police, Malawi Police Service, Department of Immigration, Malawi Revenue Authority. So when the cross-border problem, they were getting responses there and then. And we recorded each and every issue that was coming from the cross-border themselves and gave the chance for the MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies working on cross-border issues to respond. And to me, when we were leaving the meeting, I think the members had been answered the questions which they were raising. Yes, there would be some sticky issues that were remaining, but normally, you know, you cannot resolve everything there and then. There were issues of maybe sometimes the alleges where that, okay, when we pass through the border, the migration, we are done with them, MRA, we are done with them, but maybe along the way we meet roadblocks whereby the police are there. They search us and they say they want to start charging us again. So all these, I think, issues were resolved, and I think they were told that if you meet a police officer who is now inquiring about issues of duty, please report to the nearest relevant authority, let's say police or even the MRA. So all those issues were discussed. Coming to the third question, there was this issue of do we have specific resources allocated for the commitments? To say yes, I will be lying to you. As a government, if you are going to have a program and if it is supposed to be sustained, we don't have to take the project approach, but we are taking the program approach. So the resources are embedded in the mainstream government functions. So for us to be ticking the box and ensuring that what has been committed has been done, we will be comparing. We have these resources and these are the commitments. What have we done for us to tick in the commitments that this has been done? So it's up to the government now. As Ministry of Gender, we know for sure, as other development partners that are into this, they know. That's why at a certain point, as a country, we have agreed that for the commitments, it might not only be mainstream government resources. We are taking this approach as a team, development partners and the mainstream government. That's why you have agreed that at least quarterly, we should be meeting and hear what have we done on the commitments. So this progress will be recorded by the team which is looking at the commitments, whether it is an activity implemented by a development partner, a private sector, is the country of Malawi, which we are looking at in terms of commitments. So there is no separate budget for the generation equality, but we are looking at what activities are we doing, whether from the mainstream gender resources, government resources, or from development partners and the donors. Thank you very much. I hope I have touched on the 4 questions. If not, maybe you can remind me which one has not been clear or which one I have not tackled. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, for answering those questions. I'm not too sure you had answered the one from Tafazo. Tafazo's first question around whether Malawi has utilized the SADC Gender Ministers Council and its SADC chairmanship to inspire fellow SADC countries to make commitments.
Yes, I partly answered. I said, of course, we will not stand tall and talk a lot about. Hello.
Yes, Fred, you may go ahead.
Yes. The government chair of, so we would like to read by this forum meeting and getting when we'll be seeing that this would
Okay, Fred, I think you are breaking. I'm not sure what's happening with the network. We can't seem to hear you anymore. Jennifer, is that a hand up? Would you like to ask a question? I see your hand is up. Jenny from Kandawire, is that a question that you have? I see your hand is raised.
Sorry, I think I had network problems.
Yes, we lost you for a second. Yes, Fred, we can hear you now. We had lost you.
I'm back now, yeah. So I was saying that as SADC chair, what we are going to do is to inspire other member states from the forums that we have planned to be holding every quarter for the generation equality. Whatever progress we make, we'll be recording that and be sharing with our other SADC member states on the progress made, giving an example, leading by example, so that other member states could follow suit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Fred. And so before we move on to asking more questions, because we're also really interested to hear from other countries that are represented here today, we'd like to find out issues around what is the progress that has been made in other countries in regards to the commitments that they made, and as well as what has been the role of, of regional partnerships in holding each other accountable in accountability. And so prior to that, before we go to that session of the question and answers around the other countries in the region, I also just wanted to quickly go through the other action coalition that Malawi committed to, which is around economic justice and rights. I think Fred had touched on it, explaining issues around economic justice and rights and how they translate to economic and political freedom, even for women and girls. And so there were about 4 actions tied to this action coalition. The first one being around Malawi committing to increase women's economic empowerment by transforming the K economy. Secondly, Malawi committing to expand the decent work and employment in formal as well as informal economies. And the third commitment under this action coalition being Malawi commits to increase women's access to and control over productive resources, as well as Malawi committing to promote gender transformative economies and fiscal stimulus. And so these were just some of the other commitments that I wanted to run through before I move on to the other questions that we also had for the people on the webinar today. And so just to kickstart, I wanted to find out from the other countries that are represented today, what has been the progress in your countries? What has been the progress in your countries in regards to the commitments that were made? Anyone could start. Is there any progress that you're aware of that? Okay, so Wilson is telling me that Fred had left out feminist movements and leadership. Okay, Fred, would you like to go over feminist movement and leadership? Wilson is just bringing to my attention that I think that's the one element you had not touched on. Would you like to come in and briefly walk us through the feminist movement and leadership? Fred, can you hear me? Okay, I'm not sure.
Oh,
Fred,
okay, I can hear you. Can I come in?
Yes, you may.
All right. Yeah, of course. That's why initially when I was coming in, I was inquiring because I missed the first part. You remember I asked the question, should I concentrate on the economic justice only or including the feminist movements and leadership? So I was of the idea that maybe I will concentrate on the economic justice. Anyway, let me go through the feminist movements and leadership. In this one also, we have our action commitments, our action areas, which are only 3. So the first action area is fund and support diverse feminist activists, organizations, funds, and movements. So in this action area, the government of Malawi commits to allocate adequate resources to national gender equality mechanisms, especially for feminist movements, women's rights, and women and youth-led grassroots organizations, including informal groups to advance gender equality. So we are looking at organizations, movements. They should be given that power, that platform. They shouldn't be stifled. Of course, Malawi has got open policy. People, women movements are free to participate in all development endeavors. So we are just reaffirming our commitment to say we will ensure that feminist movements are given that space to participate in any other development activity. So that is action area number 1. Then action area number 2 on feminist movements and leadership we are saying that we have to promote, expand, and protect civic space for feminist action, organization, and mobilization. So wherever women want to establish, wherever women want to expand their feminist organizations, they are given that freedom to do so. And actually, we will be promoting the active participation for both, for even including women and girls, and even men to advance gender equality, the he for she, the barber shop, so that men also participate. Because sometimes we know that when you are talking of feminists, normally I've heard people saying that if you hear a male trying to support feminists, that's not true. But there are genuine people like me, I can be there to support feminist movements. And during the International Generation Equality, I, from Malawi, as a focal person for generation equality, in most cases, there could be maybe me or with another male counterpart. But in most cases, it's females, females, females. So this somehow is dangerous. I know maybe the real feminists will say, no, we don't need males. And in the forums that we have been holding for Netherlands, Canada, and Malawi, in that one too, in most cases, we have females. There is only the recent meetings that we have been holding, there is only another colleague, a male, Ruben, and normally it's the two of us who are in these discussions. So we want to assure you women, ladies, to say that men, they are genuine men who can support feminist movements. Trials will be there. So Wilson is there, it's not just because of the job, but also maybe because of his passion. Action number 3 is to advance and increase meaningful participation, leadership, and decision-making power of women, girls, and non-binary people in all their diversity. So in this one, we are saying that the meaningful participation will also have to refer to our Gender Equality Act 2013, which refers to the 60-40-40-60 ratio. And this has been reaffirmed by the president because these commitments were made at that highest office level by the president, because these commitments were sent through the office of the president. So as an affirmation, a reaffirmation, assurance, let's learn from the recent appointment of cabinet ministers. That's a very good start. We are within, and I know that most feminist movements have come in and added their voice to congratulate the government of Malawi through the President of the Republic of Malawi, His Excellency, Dr. Razras McCarthy Chakwera. So these are some of the commitments that we are looking at. So I mentioned 3 commitments on action areas on feminist movements and leadership. So those are the 3 action areas that the government of Malawi has committed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fred, for walking us through that first set of commitments. Yes, indeed, primarily the call or the webinar today was focusing on the economic justice and rights. However, we also then just felt it was important to bring in the other commitment that Malawi made, because at the end of the day, they kind of feed into each other, and no one action coalition really is a standalone coalition or commitment that works or functions on its own. And so we wanted you to also just bring in the other commitment that Malawi made to see if it might also provide some level of context for the other coalition on economic justice and rights. And so with that said, are there any questions from the people on the webinar today regarding what Fred has just presented on? Any questions? Okay, Tawonga, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to find out in what form that 10% would come about. Is it through the national budget? Is it again through the partners? And has it already been allocated? I'm saying this because I think when it comes to financial commitment for the activities that we have, whether it's programs or projects, we always have hiccups and challenges. And I remember each time we do our reporting for the CEDAW, each reporting period, we are told that the Minister of Gender is underfunded. So I'm really anxious to know how that 10% on feminist movement building and leadership would come about. And again, I've seen there are a number of structures in Malawi for feminist movement building that are disjointed. I wondered whether the Minister of Gender would like to take the responsibility of consolidating that, or even just coming up with a database to know where or these movements are, what they're doing, and kind of like mainstream that into their programming so that we can have a unified approach, and as well the ministry can have some kind of a data bank on feminist movement building. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tawonga. As I wait to see more hands, Fred, you may go ahead and answer Tawonga's question.
Thank you very much. I will start with the last one, disjointment of maybe coordination and looking at maybe the statistics. Are we going to make it to have the statistics? In our first and previous meeting, whereby partners were invited by Generation Equality to touch base on the progress, we had agreed, and Generation Equality, for equality, which called for the meeting, sponsored the meeting. We had agreed that we have to have a database whereby when we are having these quarterly meetings, every player will be giving a report which will go straight into the database on activities that we have done. So, of course, keeping track of records is a problem, but from the angle from where we are taking these issues on the generation equality, I think there is that assurance that we will have records of whatever is being done by every partner, whether government, civil society, NGO, because all players will be reporting, and this will have to be documented. So that one, I think the fears shouldn't be there, because we are taking a complete new approach whereby we are working as a team. And about the first one, I'm not sure, maybe it was breaking, but I just heard the 10%. You said you were asking me a question to say, how are you going to do? Can you repeat the 10% question? Because I just heard 10%, but the other substance, I did not get it. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Sumaka. The 10% I was referring to is the one that you shared in the PowerPoint slides, that the government is committing 10% to feminist movement building and leadership. So I wanted to find out in what form that would come. Would it come through the national budget? Would it come through different programs? Has it already been committed somewhere, or do we have evidence of that? So basically just to know how, in what form that will come, whether it has happened or when it will happen. And whether it also means having the Minister of Gender being allocated more funding, because each reporting period for CEDAW, we always have the challenge where we're told the Minister of Gender is underfunded. Thank you.
Right. Where I'm not getting it right is where you are mentioning the 10%. I don't know. I don't recall which presentation I put in the 10%. That's where I'm not understanding the 10%.
Okay, so perhaps, Tawanga, do you want to just cross-check and see? And then we put that on hold, the 10%. Tawanga says on the feminist leadership presentation. Okay, so as we are checking to make sure or to clarify on the 10%, we'll just put that on hold for now. Do we have any other questions from the participants here today? Okay, so we have a question. Yes.
Shalom, sorry, before we take another question, I just wanted to allude to the fact that, just to add on what Fred has said, he did mention that there has been some meetings that have happened and there is some frameworks that have been developed. So just wanted to say, yeah, For Equality has been supporting that process. It's not a For Equality process, but it's a joint CSO and government process where we're trying to come up with different frameworks and tools that we can use to track progress. It's not just under one action coalition, but across all the 6 action coalitions. So we have so far come up with about 4 tools. The first one being a CSO engagement framework. I think that speaks to the issue Tawanga was raising around coordination. So I think we've put together a CSO engagement framework. It's still in a draft phase because more partners are adding into it around how can we engage and coordinate together around GEF. The second one is an accountability framework, which is more of a CSO tracking mechanism to be tracking, implementation and how a tool that we can use to also ultimately hold government as the commitment maker accountable, but it also has a framework within it around how do we also hold ourselves accountable as CSOs for the realization of these commitments. The third one is a reporting tool, which is an Excel sort of document that we have, and we are using that Excel tool and asking all partners and government included to be sharing or to be reporting on the activities or the programs they are doing, which speak to any of the 6 GEF action coalitions. So the template is quite easy to use, and you can click on it to indicate whether this action or this program falls under economic justice and rights and which targets is it addressing. So we are hoping that that reporting tool can help again, just to get the information from all the partners who are involved to say, what are we doing? And then at the end of a period, maybe a year, we can look back to actually consolidate and say, this is the Malawi progress report. Because I think Tawanga also mentioned the fact that during reporting, sometimes it's difficult to get the information. So we're hoping that tool helps with that. And then the last one we have done is the scorecard. We've developed a community scorecard, which we are hoping to use in communities so that communities actually take ownership of the process and they are tracking to see whether the commitments are actually being actualized and realized in their community. So for instance, there's one that I like to use as an example, the commitment around Malawi will construct 900 healthcare centers over the next 5 years, right? It's a solid, firm commitment, which can actually be easily tracked in communities. Are people seeing, is there a new health center that has been built? All those things. So those are the 4 tools. We are glad to share them. Most of them they're still in draft form because it's an ongoing process of finalizing them. We're hoping that over the next few weeks, we have the final versions ready after feedback from all the stakeholders who were part of the co-creation process. So I just wanted to add that to what Fred had shared. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Wilson, for sharing that. I would also like to just take this opportunity to share, I don't know if you can see my screen. I'm sharing the first commitment. So Fred, I believe this is the 10% that Tawanga was referring to. Are you able to see?
Okay, I am.
Yes, yes. So it's under the action called Action 1 on fund and support diverse feminist activists, organizations, funds, and movements. So Malawi commits to allocate and channel 10% of all development financial resources to national gender equality mechanisms, especially for women's rights and women and youth-led grassroots organizations, including informal groups to advance gender equality. So I believe this is the 10% Taonga was referring to.
Is this not the first draft? Do you have my final presentation, please?
We have the one that we had received from UN Women, and so I think that's the one that's the one we were referring to, but perhaps that's changed in the final one. Okay.
Because I remember that we had put figures in the initial presentation or in the initial commitments. But when we submitted to Ministry of Finance, they had removed the figures to say, for us, this is not the way we report. You cannot make commitments with figures. So that's why we had this second version, which you should be using.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for that clarification. So Taonga, I will make sure to share with you the revised version, which I believe I am looking at now. Thank you for that clarification, Fred, on the 10%. So the 10% is out. This is the one that I think is the final version. Commits to allocate adequate resources to national gender equality mechanisms. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, great. So I think we might have had two versions circulating, not knowing that one was not the final version. Thank you for that clarification, Fred. All right, and so we also have a question from Abdi Kadir, apologies for mispronouncing your name, saying what guidelines or toolkits can be used to measure the progress of the commitments of GEF in country-wise. So I think at a country level, what guidelines or toolkits can be used to measure the progress of the commitments? I think Wilson shared, from what Wilson shared, I believe some of those can be good tools. I'm not sure if there are any inputs from anyone else. What guidelines or tools can be used to measure the progress of the commitments on GEF at a country level? Fred, would you happen to have any additional guidelines or toolkits to add to what Wilson had already shared?
Not from my side, because as a meeting, that's what we agreed, that those are the tools that we are going to use. So yes. I don't have any additional tools, but we are focusing on the same 4 tools which we can capitalize on.
Okay, great. Thank you. So please share your emails in the chat if we don't already have your email, so that the links to these tools can be shared with you. And I think it would be really great to see how you can even contextualize, depending on what commitments your country made. You can look at them and see how best you can tailor them to suit the commitments that have been made by your different countries. So please type in your email address in the chat if we don't already have it, and then we'll be sure to share that with you. Taonga, is that another hand, or it's the same hand from earlier? Okay, please go ahead, Taonga.
Thank you so much. I think on the same question for frameworks, the other person was asking about the national level, but I was also wondering, because I know these commitments are up to 2026. I was just also wondering if at a global level, we are supposed to be reporting, and if we're going to be reporting, is it every 2 years, or are we going to report in 2026? And what is going to be key stakeholders' involvement to contribute to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have been having several meetings in between, focusing on especially the feminist movements and leadership with co-leaders, Canada and the Netherlands, but also we have people from UN Women And some of the issues that are under discussion are the very same frameworks to ensure that we capture each and every progress. So even at that international level, we have not really concluded to say this is the final framework. So as we are doing our own, in the end, if we'll be reporting at an international level, we will have to align. We will have to be capturing information or data that can easily fit into the international level when we have finalized those frameworks. So as we are here, I sit in on the other meetings. I am here today with the local meeting. So I will make sure that whatever has been agreed there is talking to what we are doing, or whatever we are doing is talking to the international frameworks. Because if they are not in line, not in tandem, it will be very difficult for us to report, because we have to use the template which they will be giving us when it is finalized. So I will be like a bridge to ensure that whatever we are doing here is talking to what is at international level. So since we have not yet received the final ones, let's just wait and we will share later on. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Fred. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? Tawanga says, thank you, Mr. Simoka. The local frameworks are great and comprehensive for now. So if we're reporting at global level, we have to position ourselves well for that. Absolutely. Any other questions? Do we have any other questions from the participants on the call today? All right, so it appears we do not have any other questions at this point. I think we don't have any questions pertaining to the presentation. And so the final question, okay, we have a question from Moha. I asked any mapping mechanism for GEF. I think it's the one that we had answered around. We have tools that we're able to share. So I think I saw you put your email address in the chat. Yes, and so we'll be able to share the tools that, or the tools that we're using for Malawi GEF commitments, and hopefully you can be able to tailor those to your country context. I hope that answers your question, Moha. Yes. Okay, great, awesome, thank you. And so I think just to round things up, just to hear from everyone one last time before we end the call in about 5 minutes or so, what do we think would be the role of regional partnerships in the process of holding each other accountable? I think earlier on, Tawanga spoke to having so many commitments. However, you know, what makes this different? And I think this could be one element, being able to hold each other accountable as countries. And so what do we think would be the role of regional partnerships, regional blocks in being each other's accountability partners? Anyone can share. Would really just want to hear from you. Just as we round up the discussion, what do we think is the role of regional partnerships in the process of accountability? All right, Tawanga, you may go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I think regional partnerships will be key in terms of the issues that we will be addressing at a regional level, because sometimes these issues are quite similar. So again, instead of having disjointed activities, we can also leverage on the regional partnerships to learn from each other's and and build strong movements, especially in terms of the feminist movement building and leadership for a consolidated approach. I'm thinking along in terms of the feminist movement buildings that have happened globally at global level. So they always have cascading effect, like if they started in Europe, then they would go probably to the UK and stuff like that. So a consolidated approach, and also knowing that women's issues can be the same, is quite important, not only just at national level, I think at regional level as well. That would be key. Because I think when we compare these movements globally, Africa always remains behind. It has always taken the Western approach. So I think this would be an opportune time to be doing this at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you for those insights, Tawonga. Tafazwa, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I still believe that there is need for regional institutions such as the SADC Parliamentary Forum and the SADC Gender Ministries platform and the SADC Finance Ministries platform as well, to start aligning their strategies and start to speak to each other, especially around issues of economic justice and rights, bearing in mind that issues of power, struggles, and patriarchy are still prevalent within the Southern Africa context. So when these discourses and the commitments are made by the government, especially for the financing, the Minister of Women Affairs also need to be there, so that they're not speaking to each other, but they're not speaking to themselves, but they're also speaking to the relevant government arms that make decisions on where resources are supposed to be put. So that's one. And then the second proposal would be to work with academics in the Southern Africa region to learn about the current trends, whether it's on African feminism or economic governance, so that the recommendations that we put forward are backed by evidence. I think there's that disconnect between the work that civil society is doing and the academics as well. If it's done in other countries, I think it's a plus, it should be commended. But at regional level, there's need to really start thinking about working with the academics and as well as the community-based organizations, not excluding the private sector. The private sector plays an important role in this whole matrix. Thank you, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Tafazwa. Thank you, Tawonga, for those answers, and thank you to everyone else who's been able to contribute to the discussion. Sivuyisiwe, I see you have your hand raised. Please go ahead and ask. Sorry, please go ahead and answer the question. Sivuyisiwe.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. A bit of on the road currently at the moment, but I just want to engage on this. I do believe that as African countries, our unions are being sabotaged. At the moment, we have the resources and we have also the leadership to make it a stand that we make our countries to be more developed as they are. I do believe that Africa, with the resources that we have, especially natural resources and agriculture, the borders within us are the barriers for Africa not to develop. Our leaders are so performed at self-enrichment, and that needs to be changed. And we're calling upon young people to remove these borders within Africa, because the first barrier is that we cannot talk freely in allies. And African continent as it is, the SADC and also if ever with these borders within us, then we might have something that we say we are going to have a strategy to develop one another. You cannot have one of those countries, few of them, which are developing countries, and within the developing countries, you have underdeveloped countries, but those countries are still in the same continent. What are we teaching to the young ones that are still growing within us? I do believe that if ever we do remove those barriers within us, then Africa can be a rich country, because we have the minerals, we have the resources. Only that we need is leadership people who are going to take a stand and do not back forward from this. Thank you, leader.
Thank you so much. I think that's really insightful. Really, really insightful. Thank you so much. And I absolutely agree with you. I see Tafazwa also saying, agreeing with Priscilla. Great. All right. Thank you so much to everyone. Is there anyone who has a hand up? I do not see any other hands. And so looking at the time, we do need to round up. The program was meant to start at 10 and finish at 11:30. And so before we close off, I would just like to take this opportunity to share with you all the run of show for the next couple of days. And so as you may know, this is a 3-day Webithon. And so we started today. Today was day 1 and tomorrow. So today was day 1 where we were really talking about Malawi's GEF commitments, what commitments have been made and what progress has been made to actualize these commitments. And our speaker for today was Mr. Fred Simwaka, who's the Chief Gender and Development Officer, Women Economic Empowerment at the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare. And so tomorrow, the 9th of February 2022, our topic is going to be around transforming the care economy. So what is the care economy and what deliberate action needs to be taken for us to transform it or for it to be transformed? And leading us in this discussion is going to be Wangari Kinoti, who's the ActionAid International Policy Advisor, Women's Rights. And so you definitely do not want to miss this. I think issues around the care economy are very critical, and the care economy is what's holding a lot of our countries. And so it's really important that we have this discussion to think through how do we begin to transform the care economy? What does it mean and why does it need to be transformed in the first place? And then on Thursday, which is the 10th of February, we will have a Webithon on social accountability for economic justice. So the session will really be around understanding what exactly is social accountability, why is it key in the economic justice movement? And I sure hope to see all of you on that call, because it will be facilitated by me, Rugari Shalom Zimiya, the programs director from For Equality. And so I really hope to see you all so that we can round up the discussion by really discussing social accountability and the role that it plays in the economic justice movement. And so with that said, we have come to the end of our Webithon for today, and we'll be continuing the discussion tomorrow, as I have already said. So once again, thank you so much to you all for making the time to join. Thank you all for contributing and creating this amazing space for this amazing conversations that have taken place. We have taken note of everything and all the recommendations that have come through, all the questions that have come through. I think they're really critical and important questions to ask, even on this part of commitments and ensuring that they're really being implemented in our different countries. And a very big special thank you to Mr. Fred Simwaka. Thank you for availing yourself and for being there for the Webithon and for answering the questions that people had. I'm pretty sure people have gotten to have a better understanding of the commitments that Malawi made. And I think people are also starting to think through what this means for the commitments that their own countries have made. We're also looking forward, as For Equality, to sharing the frameworks and mechanisms that and tools that we've come up with, so that you can see how best to tailor these to also suit your different countries. And so with that said, thank you so much. I would like to hand over to Wilson just to sort of close this up. Thank you. Over to you, Wilson.
Thank you, Shalom. I thought you had done a good job of closing this up. So I wouldn't want to soil the good work you had done in wrapping us up, but just to say thank you once again to everyone, and we look forward to having you in the next call. Others have suggested that we also maybe just create a WhatsApp group around GEF for the different countries and see what's happening. So if you would want to be a part of that, you can drop us a message. I'm just putting a number that you can use to send us a message on WhatsApp with your name as well, so that we can add you to this sort of group or platform if you would want to be added. So if you check, there's a number we have put, which is +265 990 161 996. So that's the number. You can also just drop us a message. But if you have shared your number here, we've captured it, and we'll create a group that we can all, always refer to and share progress and any opportunities around GEF. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and see you in the next call tomorrow. Please do invite someone else. We'll be sharing the links again with you since we have your emails. Invite friends, let them join and be a part of these great conversations. So until tomorrow, have a good one. Cheers and bye-bye.